Yes guys, and welcome to another video. Now, as you can tell by the title, the thumbnail, and the presence of this beautiful man here, Sunderland have signed the striker Marc Guiu on a season-long loan from Chelsea. A North East club targeting a striker, getting their man despite so much interest in the lad, and also tying down a striker that is currently already on the books. Hey? Can any other North East team do that? I don't know. Enough of that. But before we do get into it, as I say, we do have quite a few things to get through, so I might not go through the statement from the club about Marc Guiu, but I will go into a bit of a discussion regarding my thoughts on him. But before we do get into it, if you can hit the like button for me on the video, it'd be massively, massively appreciated. And subscribe if you are new. There's currently nearly 60% of the viewers that are watching these videos, these updates regularly. Hopefully you're enjoying, but you're not yet subscribed. So if you consider it, that'd be so appreciated. And if you'd like to become a channel member as well, to help out towards the channel, that'd be so appreciated as well. I'll be really grateful for that. But anyway, getting into it, Sunderland have signed Marc Guiu on a season-long loan from Chelsea. Now, on paper, when we were first linked with the lad, as I did mention in the previous video when we discussed him, I was excited because he is somewhat of a high-profile name. However, the experience simply wasn't there. So, of course, I would have preferred someone who maybe a little bit older, had a lot more appearances and experience, under his belt. But since that video, I've listened to a handful of podcasts, read several news reports on him, and particularly when you listen to the podcasts from Chelsea fans discussing him, it definitely makes me look at him in a bit more of a different light. Some Chelsea fans last season at one point even wanted him to be their number one striker, regardless of only a small amount of appearances. Of course, he did play in their UEFA Conference League win, which saw him score, I think it was 6 goals. He scored a hat-trick in one of the games, and he made a little bit part roles here and there. But of course, when they had, I think it was Nkunku and Nicholas Jackson up top as well, it was hard for him to break through. However, a lot of Chelsea fans saw the potential in him, and they said that they didn't really want, or at least they definitely don't want him to sign anywhere else permanently. I believe that he had a lot of offers and substantial offers from clubs really high up in Europe that wanted to give him a tryout, but he decided to come for Sunderland and play his trade in the Premier League. And from his opening interview, he seems very excited and confident in doing so. Now, from what I've sort of gleaned from these interviews and reports is someone who really does work his socks off and will become a fan favourite just from that alone, is what a lot of Chelsea fans are saying. If you listen to What the Folk podcast, Graham, good lad, really good friend of mine, he has a really good podcast with a Chelsea fan on there who describes in detail the type of player he is almost, even though it seems wrong because he came up through the Barcelona academy, you'd expect him to be this sort of slick, tricky, rapid player. He's more of almost an old school British number 9, where he's a bit of a bully. He loves the physical aspect. He really presses relentlessly and doesn't stop, and that's where a lot of his goals come from. And I think in the Premier League, where a lot of teams do play out from the back, to have someone who is just going to relentlessly press non-stop all game, it could really pay off, having that kind of player that, ultimately it doesn't look pretty on paper when I'm discussing the type of player he is. And that's not to say that he can't play with his feet. He isn't technically gifted, because he absolutely is. But I know what that sounds like. It doesn't sound too exciting. Someone who's going to beat 3, 4, 5 players and then put one in top corner. Not necessarily that kind of player. But he does look, an aerial challenge. He likes to really combat defenders, which is what I'm alluding to, is what I'm trying to say. Really good physical presence, which is something we don't have. He's good at holding up the ball and linking up the play. My only concern with that, which I'm guessing we're going to have to try and play to his strengths anyway, but I found that particularly over the last couple of years, a lot of our attacking play does come from the wingers, and the service is very, very rarely there. It's generally, get it out to the left-hand side, get it out to the right-hand side, cutting from right to left or left to right, and then go for goal. And that's where sometimes we do see the likes of Easter and Mayenda go missing, because a lot of our attacking threats are from the wingers directly, and they're not really bringing in the strikers. So we might have to adapt to a degree, well, we need to really, to bring him into the game and try and find a different outlet, because we do need an outlet like that, a physical presence that can hold up the ball when sometimes, to relieve us of pressure, to be able to go a little bit route one almost, if you will, and then he can get the ball to stick to him, and he can allow us to take a breather, from the back line, and everyone else can push forward, and he can bring them into the play. If that's the kind of play we're bringing in, I'm absolutely all for it. And if he can, be that sort of fox in the box as well, which he deems himself to be, it could prove to be an absolutely fantastic loan signing. So that is the signing of Marc Guiu. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm very excited to see what he is like on the pitch, as I'm sure you lot are as well. Now, on to another striker, Elijah Mayenda. I think it was either yesterday or the day before. Fabrizio did post a tweet. It was a here we go tweet regarding Elijah Mayenda. Apparently, he has signed a 5-year deal at the club amidst a lot of interest, I believe, according to a lot of reports. There was a lot of interest in Elijah Mayenda, and we've managed to tie him down to a 5-year deal until the summer of 2030, which for me, that's a statement of intent. And also with Elijah Mayenda, last season, it was his breakthrough season. And what is mental, and I've said a million times, not only on the channel, but to other people as well, what I find absolutely mental is, we sent him out on loan to Scotland, didn't we? And he couldn't get a game. He couldn't get a game for Hibs. And then he come to us, he had bit part roles in there, we played him here and there, and then all of a sudden, he was absolutely incredible. Now, that doesn't say everything was always smooth sailing, because when he's on form, Elijah Mayenda, particularly in the Championship, is absolutely unplayable. His direct rawness, his pace, his physicality is outstanding. However, he does go through those periods as well. I remember around Christmas time last year, he had, I think it was Blackburn and who was it, someone else as well. It was almost in the middle of sort of 2-3 games, he missed 2 or 3 sitters all in the space of 2 or 3 games, and they were real sitters. I think Blackburn absolutely was one of them. Sitter, there was a header from 4 or 5 yards out that had gone wide, and he can be like that. And I feel like sometimes with Mayenda, once he's got that one sort of good chance in a game, he won't stop and he'll keep going. But sometimes if you're not finding him, if you look at him off the ball, he can look that little bit sort of, not lazy, that's a bit, I think that'd be a bit harsh, but he can look a little bit almost laboured, and he'll just sort of wander across the back line because he's not being involved. But sometimes I think as players, you need to, as a striker, if you're not being involved for large parts of the game, sometimes you need to drop deep and just get a touch on the ball to get yourself back into the swing of things. And that's what I did allude to with the game against Real Betis, when Jacques had the ball and he just screamed for Mayenda to come deep for it, and he did. And he did really, really well. Held off his man, turned off and put it out wide. And Jacques was almost like celebrating like it was a goal. Proper leadership material, dragging his striker into the game. And that's what we need to see from Mayenda. But the potential is there in abundance. We know this. And I think if he has a good season in the Premier League, which fingers crossed, touch wood, he does, we're probably going to have to fight off for a lot of teams for his signature again, which will be a struggle, particularly depending on how we do the season anyway. But I think it's smart from the club, because if that is the case, I just said, on a 5-year deal, we'll definitely be able to recoup a real decent amount of money from him, which I'm not looking at in the minute because I don't want to lose Elijah Mayenda. But yeah, very, very good news, very progressive thinking, really good. Really good news, essentially, is what I'm saying. But we do have one more piece of news to get through. Now, it's a player we have been linked with several times over the last few weeks or even month or two. And a lot of you guys in the comments keep saying, you're not speaking about this, you're not speaking about this. And I'll be honest, because there hasn't been really too much in it, but I'm going to discuss it a little bit purely because it has been suggested so much, and there still are small reports here and there. So Loic, Bade, the centre-back from Sevilla, we did actually come up against him in pre-season when I was over in Portugal. Big 6'3" centre-back, he's quick, he's really good with his feet. He was linked with us not too long after that friendly against Sevilla. However, there was reports, only very light reports, and this is why a lot of people are jumping on this. So I think there's one report, possibly 2, but they were generally from like Colombian accounts that had like 1,500 followers, and they didn't have too much of a reputation. And I know that looks a bit shallow, but generally the big journalists do have the big followings, and they have that sort of that backing, if you will. Whereas there's just like one sort of loose report suggesting that he's rejected Sunderland, he doesn't want to go to a team that aren't in Europe. Then there were bigger reports from bigger outlets suggesting that Bournemouth were in for him, and they rejected Bournemouth. Now, these were all rumoured to be around sort of €25 million bids. However, a couple of slightly bigger outlets, again, not huge and not from the most reputable, but over the last couple of days, there has been outlets reporting that Sunderland have gone back in for him and offered in the region of €30 million, but that hasn't been rejected or seen to as of yet. Now, if that was to happen, I'd be absolutely buzzing. If we managed to get him and John Lasumi, I think that would be incredible. But these are names that we keep getting linked with and we don't hear much of. But for me, my main target is a centre-back would be Lasumi. I just think he's perfect for the Premier League with, the big physical presence, strong, rapid, and he is unbelievably good with the ball at his feet, as is Loic Bade, to be fair. But either way, I take either of them, but like I said, Lasumi would just be my preferred choice. In terms of what I think we need to do now, I do think a couple of centre-backs and a full-back, preferably a fullback that can play either left or right back quite comfortably. That'd be nice. And another winger for competition, I think we'd be pretty much set. I know that a lot of people have looked at Marc Guiu and thought, you know, because of the lack of experience, we might need someone else, which I do agree to an extent. But I think then we'd have, you know, Isidore, Mayenda, we'd have Guiu, all, well, at points, because we generally play one striker. I know sometimes we do play two at the top, but we're going to have a lot of sad faces because a lot of them will have to sort of move out of the way, won't they? Which I think a lot of players are going to have to. The likes of Dan Neil, Paddy Roberts in a minute, there's a lot of rumours about them. But a lot of players are going to have to just accept the fact that this step up to the Premier League is absolutely massive. So you're not the sort of star player that you were in the Championship, which is brutal. But there's no time to be sentimental when you're in the Premier League with certain players. But anyway, I'm going to stop rambling on and make absolutely zero sense. But yeah, so we have signed Marc Guiu on a season-long loan from Chelsea. What do you guys think? And if you're a Chelsea fan actually watching the video, let me know down below what you believe and what you think of Marc Guiu. Now, of course, Mayenda potentially signing a new contract. It seems like it's going to be announced at any point now, because he did actually put an Instagram post up just with a picture of himself in a Sunderland shirt and a sort of the eye emojis. Basically, we know what he's hinting at, obviously. And of course, Loic Bade as well from, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but you know, I just look at words and make noises, don't I? But what would you think if we were to bring him as well? But hit the like button for me, subscribe if you're new. But for now, how are the lads? Keep the faith.